All right, everybody, here we are for episode 59 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. This week we are going to talk, as you can see, I've got displayed here. Move your Diet Coke, sir.
No product placement yet. Hey,
Yeah.
Diet Coke, right here. Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on.
There's
Label out.
We're going to review the new Suicide Squad movie, or as my son would make sure I call it, The Suicide Squad. That's what it's titled. And
Valid point.
so we're going to talk about the Zack Snyder movies of the DCEU universe. So, first, obviously, we can't start this conversation without talking what I think most people would consider a huge disappointment in the first Suicide Squad movie.
You know, I didn't hate it, but I just kind of, it was just like a thing for me. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, Margot Robbie is incredibly attractive, so I
Yes.
enjoyed her, obviously, and she did a great job, aside from just being absolutely
Being
drop-dead
pretty.
gorgeous.
Yes.
But she did a great job. She was the Harley Quinn that I remember from, like, the Batman animated series and
Yeah.
comic books and whatnot, so...
Well, and I think, so, it had some of the characters that worked right. There were some characters that you were like, wow, this is a great start. But the story was too simple. It ended up being another Save the World with Will Smith movie, and just he's done so many of those. So let's start at the beginning. It's directed by David Ayer, who wrote Training Day and a bunch of other cop-related type movies. End of Watch, which was fantastic. But he did Suicide Squad. That was his big foray into comic book movies, and it didn't go well. Critics weren't fans. Fans weren't fans. It just didn't hit the right marks. Will Smith was Will Smith. He did a good job as Deadshot. And then, obviously, you said Margot Robbie. Like, you can't really think of... I can't think of anybody else that's that character anymore. I know some people that stay diehards to the original animated Batman and the cartoon, don't like the way she dresses and whatnot. And I kind of agree. Some of that is they do sexualize her, especially in this one a lot, in the first Suicide Squad. But she is that character. Like, you can't have that character anymore, at least in my opinion, in a film. She's going to be like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, no matter how many like iterations of this universe that they do, which we're already like on our third iteration of the DC universe. She's the only constant at this point.
Yeah.
So she's been through all of it. And I think she's going to continue. Like, that's what people said. What the most interesting thing about the newest one is, like, where does she go next? Because they're not getting rid of that character.
Right.
But Birds of Prey didn't necessarily do great enough to get a sequel. So do you put her in something else? What's the idea there? So, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to mention, I like the fact that in the first movie, she had the tattoo rotten right here.
Yeah.
And the actress, Margot Robbie, did not like that at all. And so James Gunn was like, all right, well, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just that simple action, which, to most people, it's going to be like, oh, okay, so there's not a stupid tattoo on her face.
Yeah.
No, it really changes the mindset of, going into the role and really feeling like you have some creative input. And I think that really helps with just the mindset going in and portraying the character, because if there's something physically that you don't like about the character you're portraying, I think subconsciously you're not going to be as into it, I think.
Yes.
And although, I'm sure she's fantastic actress, I've loved her in pretty much everything she's ever always been in. I can't think of anything I didn't like, but yeah, I just think that mindset-wise, going into something like that, it's just going to really help the psyche, I guess.
Well, and it's nice for, James Gunn is very much a guy, I think, that does listen to his actors. So it's nice for them to have that kind of relationship that I don't think was necessarily there during this Ayer version of the film, where everything was a mess. The story was kind of like, and I think it was Jeff, our friend Jeff, described it. It's like a video game. It's like they're basically it's like a side scroller going down this long street to the end of where they're basically going to end up fighting Enchantress, played by Cara Delevingne. And that's it. And it's just, it's just very simple, and it just didn't, the team aspect I think was there, but it was still kind of cheesy. They didn't really know what kind of how do you make bad guys good? Like, how do you want to root for them? I'm not sure they quite understood how to do that. I also do I want to throw some credit out, because I've always given him a hard time as an actor. Jay Courtney, who plays Captain Boomerang.
You mean Jai?
Jai or Jay.
If you watched our last episode, I mistakenly called him Jai because he deserves it.
Yes. He one of the few other actors to reprise his role in the new one, but he did a really good job in the first Suicide Squad. I thought he was funny. He was charismatic. He got to use his Australian accent, which he doesn't get to use all the time. So that was a pleasant surprise out of the first movie, just to pick on some positives, since there weren't a lot of positives.
I feel it was a little bit short on his dialogue in this new one. What do you think?
Yeah, a little bit. People, I think, can allude to that. In the new one, there are a lot of deaths. It's not as... Back when I was thinking about this, back when this one came out, that's just what the other difference between these two movies. And we'll obviously, when we get to the new one, we'll talk about it more. But the stakes. There's so much more stakes in the new movie, where this one's like, they're not going to kill Will Smith. They're not going to kill Margot Robbie. They're not going to kill this person. They're not going to kill that person. So it's like, where the new one was like, will they? Maybe. Probably not. But maybe. They definitely made it more intense. But
the deaths and the gore in general were just outstanding.
Yes,
it made me almost think of like Shaun of the Dead style. Like, you're like cheering for like, oh wait.
So again, this one PG-13. IR does say there's a director's cut out there. I really hope we don't get it. I think we just need to put this one in the past. He's kind of put it in the past. Mm-hmm. He's still bitter about it, I think, because he's like, I made a good movie, but regardless.
Insert meme.
I would love to see if they do more of this, or take these characters to see like Deadshot show up again, because I think Will Smith took a break because he was like, I didn't go how I planned, so I'm not going to be in the next one.
I think we do need to talk about the Joker character, Jared Leto's performance, real quick. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I frequently am, as you guys and Kirky, that was the first time we saw Joker on screen since Heath Ledger?
Yeah, that was so...
Or Keith Fletcher.
Keith Fletcher. Inside joke, everybody. Yes, that was 2016 was the first time that we saw him, or 15. It was 2015, I think. Yeah. Whichever. When this movie came out, first time we saw Joker on screen again. As much as I love Jared Leto, it was a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
Not just the look. The way he portrayed it was odd, I think. It was an odd choice. Like a lot of people said, he probably should have been the Riddler, because he kind of played it more like that. Where you had like Lex Luthor in Batman vs Superman, who played it more like a Joker type character. Mm-hmm. So maybe they should have switched roles, or they should have added the Riddler in.
Now that you say that, I could picture Jared Leto doing some pretty epic Lex Luthor work.
But... Yeah, he could. I mean, he really, you give him that type of character. I mean, he's a great actor. He is one of those method actors. He's one of probably the last around that kind of goes that far to his new movie Gucci coming out. He looks completely different, doesn't look anything like him as usual.
Yep. The Denzel movie that we reviewed a couple months ago.
Little things. Yep.
That was an amazing portrayal. Yes. One of the only real positives I think we had to say about that.
Exactly, and the fact that he that one he mostly looked like himself for the most part. He looked like just a little strung out, but
insanity type thing. And the reason I wanted to just talk about this really quick is because you can have an amazing actor, an amazing character performance, method actor, and it's just the role or something just doesn't mesh out.
Yeah, it just did, for this particular role as the Joker, it just didn't work. I appreciated when he came back and he did that one little cameo in Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I actually appreciated that role of his Joker more than I did in this one. And it wasn't even about the look. It was just the way he played it. He played it a little different in the Snyder cut. And I would kind of wish we would have got that Joker in Suicide Squad. It's just, like I said, this movie, it had so much going for it. It wasn't, despite what people say about it critically and fan-wise, it was a box office success, just like Batman vs. Superman to start. They tanked like weekend 2, but they opened with huge money. It just was just a disappointment. I haven't seen it in a while. I watched it since it came out on Blu-ray, but I haven't seen it in quite some time. But it's a good place to start, I think, for this conversation, because where we end up, I think, is in a much better spot. So this was then, you had DC kind of like, I wouldn't say they weren't separating them yet, because our next movie that we're going to talk about actually should be up here, is Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman came out, I think, the following year, and really kind of set the tone of like what the movies for DC should be.
Yeah, I think we can agree that this was probably the best, and DC finally delivered a good superhero movie.
Yes, yes. And it's definitely been the best of the early bunch. here, I like this one, and we'll get to the other one too in a minute here. And plus the one we're going to review. But this one, it just really, it showed that they like understood the character. I think, like at least to my knowledge of the character. Again, I'm not. I like comics. I read comics, but I'm not like a huge Wonder Woman comic fan. But what I know about the character from the comics, it felt like they hit it pretty head on. Gal Gadot does a really fantastic job as Wonder Woman. I'll be honest, early on in her career, I wasn't sure how strong of an actress she was.
Yep.
I think she was perfect for this role, even if she's got some limitations in some other movies that she's in, even after this. I think as Wonder Woman, she's kind of perfect because it's like this whole fish out of water thing, like kind of naive to the world and the way it works, and her performance just works with that.
Yeah, the only time I remember her was the Fast and the Furious movies she was in, and minor supporting character in my opinion. And while she did well in her scenes, I was just kind of like, I didn't know about the Amazonian warrior aspect of it, but she delivered.
Yeah, she did such a good job. It's such a great cast too. Connie Nielsen as her mother, Robin Wright as her aunt, and then you have David Thewlis from Harry Potter playing the villain Hades. Chris, is it Ares or no? It's Hades, isn't it? Or is it Ares?
Ares is the god of war. Hades is the lord of the underworld.
That's right. It's Ares. Sorry, my bad. Ares. And then you have Chris Klein playing her not her boyfriend, but the eye candy, if you will, for the ladies, and the Steve, what's his name? Not Rogers.
Buscemi.
Yes, he plays Steve Buscemi. He plays, isn't it Steve?
He plays the guy who does the thing.
Who sacrifices himself, as we all know. We've seen it. And great character actors too that play I didn't look up their names.
One of the many Chris's, Chris Pine.
Chris Pine,
Chris Evans.
Did I say Chris Klein?
I get confused on my Chris's, to be honest with you. I mean,
this is getting off the rails here.
Star-Lord. I just call him by Star-Lord. The guy that was in Parks and Rec.
So Captain Kirk plays the male lead in this movie. Therefore, everybody should know who I'm talking about. And it's not William Shatner. Would have been interesting though. So Chris Pine, if I didn't say that correctly before, I apologize. Is the male lead in the film. They have great chemistry together. It is just a really fun movie to watch. And like I said, it was kind of like when you saw Wonder Woman, and as someone who didn't I can't say I have hate for Suicide Squad, Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel. I think they're bad movies. But when I watched Wonder Woman, I was like, oh, well, like that's how you do it. And they didn't get it for those movies. Snyder and Ayer just didn't understand what they needed to do. And so look at the back of the DVD here. Patty Jenkins knew exactly what had to be done. And she did it perfectly. I know everyone wasn't pleased. We're not going to get into the second one because we reviewed that one already. Not everybody was pleased with that one. We're not talking about that one. I'm just talking about the initial one, the first one. And I think it was like just a perfect knockout of the park, really.
Agreed.
All right, so then the next one that came out, this is probably one of Donovan's favorites too because it deals with a lot of sea animals and whatnot, is Aquaman. And I actually really like Aquaman. Directed by James Wan, one of my favorites horror directors. I kind of look at Aquaman as like Thor to me. There are people that have really liked Thor, the first Thor movie, and there are people that really don't. And I feel like Aquaman's the same way. It's a character that maybe not everybody is as familiar with.
Right.
Or
they're familiar with the
lame version,
or the Super Friends lame, riding the seahorse type Aquaman. And Jason Momoa here is just yes. Obviously, riding the success of his Game of Thrones character. You kind of just see that in his look and everything.
I mean, he obviously uses the same trainer that I do. I mean, we look pretty similar.
I'm just waiting for my residuals to come in for me being his body double.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time they started paying you. It's ridiculous, Warner Brothers. Pay the man.
Sorry.
So Jason Momoa is Aquaman, obviously. Amber Heard plays the redhead.
The woman that nobody likes now.
The woman nobody likes.
I'm not going to really get into that.
We don't need to get into that. It's
no good.
It's a weird thing.
Obviously, the petitions to remove her and whatnot.
Yes.
It's
been denied. Yeah. Amber Heard.
Moving on. She's going to be in it. If that's going to make you not see the movie, then hey.
That's right. That's your choice. Mira. Amber Heard as Mira. Willem Dafoe as Vulko. Patrick Wilson as Orm, a.k.a. the Ocean Master. One of our favorites. Dolph Lundgren, we talked about him last week. He plays King Norris. Yahya Abdul Mateen II as David Kane, a.k.a. Black Manta, also from Trial of Chicago 7. Ludi Lin. Nicole Kidman plays Aquaman's mother. Tamora Morrison plays the father of Aquaman. So you got a great rounded out cast there to kind of surround Momoa, who, again, similar to what I would say, my opinions of Gal Gadot going into that movie, Momoa does have, I think, some limitations when it comes to performances and stuff. But again, this role, they kind of fit this role and to him. Instead of making him fit the role, they made Aquaman around him. They wanted to make this much more stronger kind of like surfer dude Aquaman character for people to be, think is cool. Since, like we just talked about, people do not think Aquaman is cool. So this movie, I think it's a great origin story to tell his beginning. It has so many great like underwater battle sequences, so many great sea animals, like cool creatures and stuff that you just see underground, underwater. Just a really kind of cool. And they were gonna make a horror movie out of it, but they canceled it. The creatures at night that come out and like kill people, those really dark creatures, it's pretty crazy. I forget what they're called, but they were gonna make a movie out of that. But Aquaman 2 just went into production, so they are continuing this franchise. It's a little different now because with like Justice League and Batman and Superman kind of being dead in the water, like they have to kind of go their own route, which for something like, I guess Aquaman's not as bad because they didn't work it in, but Wonder Woman, if you remember, Wonder Woman starts as basically like a prequel to Justice League.
Yeah.
And it's like her in modern time, and then it takes us back to when she first met Chris Pine's character. So it's a little hard to look at that one separately, where I think Aquaman you can definitely look at is like it kind of stands on its own.
Yeah, we don't know where the hell DC is going with it. They have tumbled and tumbled, and although you and I both can agree that the Snyder cut of Justice League was a vast improvement.
Yes.
It's still not a perfect movie, and it still doesn't really compete with
and you can't just
any of the Avenger movies.
No, and you can't really just throw it back into the universe and be like, oh, we're going to retcon everything, and this is it. Like, you have to kind of just keep moving forward, I think, and just try to make successful movies at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is because there's so many ways to go with these type of movies. And Marvel, people forget that Kevin Feige spent years planning out the MCU, and he's still
decades.
Yes, he's still planning this thing out.
We're into the third decade of the Marvel.
Yeah,
MCU.
You're right. Yeah, we are. So you're right because it started at the end of the 2010 decade. So that is decades in the workings, and I'm sure that he had worked on it long before that. That wasn't just like a plan that he all of a sudden just came up with. He had been working on this idea for a while.
That's how I feel like the Superman movies are, honestly. Superman is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we still haven't gotten a Superman film that really lets him cut loose.
Yeah.
Stop messing around with Earthlings, bring in Darkseid, and let's have just an over-the-top, something you got to watch in the theater, just universe-threatening film.
They should have had it with Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah.
When you bring in Doomsday, like that is that is what you're looking for as a Superman fan. And then the whole Martha, how do you know that name?
Even when you're going to have the two fight against each other, it's not realistic. I don't care what Batman comes up with. All Superman has to do is fly up into the sun because that's what gives him his powers, and then he's damn near unstoppable. So
pretty much
they put way too much emphasis on that. That could have been like a little side story or to help it along.
Yeah.
But again, we're not talking about that. My disappointment.
We could go on for hours about that.
And I mean, I really like Henry Cavill.
Yeah, he does a good job.
He is a fine Superman and Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everything else. Let's move on before I go on a diatribe and a rant.
All right, so after Aquaman, you got what I think is probably one of the most entertaining ones. It's not up on this shelf here. Is Shazam from 2019.
They really did a great job with just implementing comedy and making it lighter.
Mm-hmm.
So finally,
showing it could work in the DC universe.
Yeah, you're like, they just copied Marvel. Yeah, and it was a great movie. So,
directed by David S. Sandberg, screenplay by Henry Gayden, starring Zachary Levi, Mark Strong, Asher Angel, Jack Dylan Grazer, Jaman Hansu, Djimon Hounsou's been in quite a few of the movies that we've talked about lately. Or franchises
and
in general.
His brother Hattori Hanzo.
Yes.
Makes excellent swords, I hear.
Yes, he does. So Zachary Levi finally gets his chance. It's one of those things that ever since he did Chuck, people have been like, he needs to be a superhero of some kind or another. And before Shazam, even obviously after he got cast in Shazam, he started working out more. But he had slimmed down and gotten somewhat muscular, so people started to see it more. I believe he tried out for Steve Rogers, Captain America. So like there was that history of like him trying to be in a comic book movie. And I think this Shazam fits his personality more than any of the other characters that he could have tried out for, just because they work in the comedy aspect of, again, another fish out of water story. You have like this god who basically has to live like this normal life kind of, and it's a weird little story, but it was so perfect. It was funny, it was hilarious, it was action packed. Even in the fight sequence at the end where you have the big serious moments, they were still funny and entertaining. And nothing was there really wasn't much, in my opinion, to complain about this film. The first time I saw it, I really enjoyed it. I've watched it a couple times since then, and I've been meaning to watch it again. I wanted to watch it this week and didn't get a chance to. But it just is a really, really good, entertaining, fun film. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, well, so they can make these kind of movies. Yeah. So they keep talking about how they can't do it. It's like, oh, but they did. So it's doable. Shazam 2 is already in production, so I'm looking forward to that coming out soon, as well as Aquaman 2 and Wonder Woman 3 at some point, and hopefully another Suicide Squad movie or whatever they do with that property.
The thing about that, just the way, I think Zach really had a comfort with this character.
Yeah.
Just the way a line is delivered, but with the facial aspects, or just like the sarcastic, just, if it's just a simple eyebrow cock or a head nod or tilt or something.
Yep.
It just adds that little subtle Midwest. It makes it believable. You're just like,
yeah, it was really, really done very well. And to add to that, they when the kids became the adult superheroes, they got other. I'm not seeing the characters on here, but they had other well-known actors to play some of those parts. So that was fun as well. And it is going to lead into the Black Adam movie with The Rock, which hopefully he was supposed to be, Black Adam was supposed to be the villain in Shazam, but they decided that since they cast The Rock, they're like, well, we'll just give him his own movie. So hopefully at one point they put those movies together. That would be, I think, really cool.
I think I saw somewhere on The Rock's social media that they just wrapped up principal photography of
Black Adam. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they just finished filming that. So DC's
within the next year or two, we should be getting.
DC's got quite a bit the lineup here, even with some of the issues that they've had. They've got like 4 or 5 movies in the can. They've got the Batgirl TV show going straight, or not TV show, movie going straight to HBO Max that they're working on.
Oh, it's good that we're not depending on Batman and Superman.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're just
obviously, before all that, we had the Green Lantern Ryan Reynolds movie.
Yes.
And I enjoy it. Other people
I do too.
Like,
it's cheesy. It's the thing with Green Lantern was that it still, even 10 years later, they shot it in the mold of the Spider-Man movies from the early 2000s.
Right.
So it still hits a lot of those notes, but we had moved past that, I think. So it was just kind of like it didn't hit with everybody as much. I still enjoy it for what it is. I love Ryan Reynolds.
Of course, that's a given.
A huge sticking point.
He's that other guy in the red pajamas.
Yes, exactly.
That you like. That guy right there.
Yeah.
My thing is, I think that they tried to force too much into that movie. I think they really needed to make that 2 or 3 films. Like, the first one needed to end after he gets to Oa.
Yes.
And then I think they need more time developing and just...
I think part of the problem with DC is this is where Marvel understood it too. Sorry. You have to kind of take your time to introduce the characters throughout. It's the first time we'd ever seen. This was basically supposed to be the start of the DCEU. Luckily, it didn't do as great, so they ended up starting with Man of Steel, which unfortunately wasn't as good as everyone had planned. Right. But Superman starting off a franchise is much better than Green Lantern, a character that not everybody's really going to know all that well.
Yeah.
So I think they were kind of starting, like with Iron Man, they were starting down here, but they brought us up here. Green Lantern was like starting down here, but they brought it up a little bit. They were like I said, they copied a lot of other comic book movies. Where Favreau with Iron Man, and this is not to throw any more love on MCU, really kind of understood what he needed to do to make that movie a success.
For what Jon Favreau has done with Star Wars as well, he can have all the love that he wants.
Give him, you know what? Give him DC. Let him do that. Let him do Superman.
Let him focus on Star Wars.
That's true. That's
finished up because.
All right, so the next one, the last one that we'll talk about, I actually personally like this film. Some people, I don't know if you've even seen it, Wayne. Birds of Prey.
I have not yet seen Birds of Prey.
So I really like Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey was their hyper-violent. They're kind of the precursor to Suicide Squad.
Okay.
It's hyper-violent. It lets Margot Robbie basically take the reins of the franchise overall because it's all about her and the Birds of Prey, which
the Klingons are sure going to be mad that they stole their spaceship.
Yes. Well, let me just say too that she is not a member of the Birds of Prey. That is a big confusion. The people go, well, she would never be in the Birds of Prey. And I'm like, well, did you watch the movie? Well, no. Well, okay, well, she's not. So, like, it's basically... I
haven't read the article, but here's how I feel about the picture.
Yes, exactly. So, it's a movie about Harley Quinn trying to separate herself from the Joker. And she ends up running into the other people, the Black Canary, Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, sorry, I gotta look at my phone again, who is the Huntress, and then Rosie Perez, Renee Montoya. They're like the good of the movie. They're like the kind of wholehearted, like they're there to bring good to people, to be heroes in a sense. That's why they are technically the ones who become the Birds of Prey. Where Harley Quinn is still like she's out for herself, but just like you see in the Suicide Squad movies, she can work in a team, but she still has her own goals. And that's what you see in Birds of Prey. She has her own purpose of what she's doing. Her end goal is not to be the part of the Birds of Prey. It's to kind of be on her own. And I really like that aspect of it. I like that they kind of let her run loose. There's a lot of great gags in this one. Lots of great violence and blood. Ewan McGregor plays such a really great schmarmy bad guy that's just an arrogant prick. Like, he's so good at it. And it was his American accent in this one it almost reminded me of Bale from American Psycho. Like, that's kind of how he played it. He played it very much in that vein. And he was really good. Let me see the director, give her some credit too. Kathy Yang was the director, or Yan. Produced by Margot Robbie. I said Mary Elizabeth Winstead, but also Journey Smollett-Bell, Rosie Perez, Chris Messina, who plays Ewan McGregor's right hand, Ella J. Bosco, and Ali Wong. Ali Wong is a comedian. She plays a former partner, I think, of Renee Montoya, Rosie Perez's character. Or may even be... I think it might be her former lover, who's also part of the... also maybe her partner detective, was part of the police force at some point. But it's a solid film. I think people, I don't know what people were expecting. I think most people were just mad that Harley Quinn was like leading a movie. Maybe, I don't know. Like, it was weird. But again, like we talked about with the first Suicide Squad movie, like Margot Robbie is Harley Quinn, and to see her get her own movie, they add in so many great like Harley Quinn things that we actually get to see in the newest Suicide Squad movie too, where. Real quick, just so people know what I'm talking about, like the scene in the new movie where the flowers, where she sees like the flowers around her. That's a lot of that's taken from this movie, where she's like, there's just like little birdies flying around and shit, like that's not real, but that's just how her head works.
Well, it's a part of the mental illness that she has, and what she's got going on up there.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, if you haven't seen Birds of Prey, I really do recommend you watching it. I think it's a solid flick. It's a great kind of like girl power woman superhero flick. It's
just nice that the character got a lead movie, unlike how Black Widow had to wait all those years.
Yes.
Was
it
12, 14 years? No, 2000.
Shoot.
She was in the second Iron Man.
She was in 2010, so 11 years she had to wait. Technically 10, because it got delayed last year, but 11 years.
Anyway, it's just nice to see somebody being progressive and taking something that's good and making it better and letting a character and an actress just shine.
You could just tell, too, that she has so much fun with this role.
Absolutely.
And she really, like, if she didn't take it serious, it wouldn't be as good. But because she takes it so seriously and she wants to kind of honor the character, I think she does like better than she probably needs to do for a superhero movie. Like I mean, we're talking about an Academy Award nominated actress that just kills this role every time that she's done it. She's done it 3 times now. And again, like I talked about, every time she's done it, it's like a restart. Like this was the beginning of a franchise, or sorry, the Suicide Squad was the beginning of the franchise. Then Birds of Prey was like kind of a reboot almost, and then you get the new Suicide Squad, which is another kind of soft reboot. Yeah. So she's had to like take this character into all these different films that are all so different too. Like that's the other thing.
Now she is Australian.
Yes. Well?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. To her accent, that like New York kind of Bronx.
She does it so well.
It's so believable, like because you like one of the things that ruins it for me. Obviously, I know we've discussed this. Bad accents.
Yeah.
Obviously, The Departed immediately comes to mind with the bad accents, but she is just really spot on with her, like 5 boroughs type. Oh, Mr. J, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
No, she really nails it, and I mean, if you didn't know she was Australian, some of you may not know, you wouldn't have any idea that that it was not her real voice.
Yeah, I mean, we're just a week late on this one. We hadn't heard of the Women in Action because dang man,
I know,
she throws it down.
She does, and she's another one. She's like a Charlize Theron, where she can do anything.
Yeah,
she can do comedy, drama, action. It doesn't matter. She can handle it all. And I mean, she burst onto the scene in Wolf of Wall Street. She'd done a few things before then, but that was really where she kind of came to her own, and it was almost immediate. Right. Immediately after that movie, she started getting all these major roles.
The other movie she was in with Will Smith were their spies.
They were con people.
Con artists.
Focus, which I really like. Yes. Underrated film. If you haven't seen Focus, definitely a movie of hers to check out. Tanya, she was really good, and I still haven't seen Bombshell yet, but she's just anything she does, she's fantastic. And I think this movie again is an example of just how she can lead a movie and it be successful, even though financially it wasn't as successful as it should have been. But hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. All right, so we're gonna move on to our next segment, which is our reviews
of the week.
And this week we start out with the one we've already mentioned, and that's James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
Yes.
James Gunn I've been a fan of James Gunn's for a long time, Wayne. Since I started working at Blockbuster, people I worked there had turned me on to a couple of his movies. And it was just, he had just written them. And so he hadn't directed anything. He didn't direct until he did Slither in 2006-7 area. He is just an interesting dude. He really is. He's got a weird dark sense of humor. But he's great with actors. He's great with action, as we've seen in Guardians.
Yes.
And so when I heard that he was going to do this movie, I was so excited, and I couldn't wait to see it. And the fact that we finally got to watch it is just awesome.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm leaning towards yes. I really love this movie, but let's talk about it first.
Well, because we now that we have Suicide Squad, now we're getting Guardians 3 eventually.
Yep, exactly. So, which is his next. Yep, right on the. Yeah.
So. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014 was one of the biggest surprises I've ever had in the theater. I went into that one just like, all right, it's a Marvel thing, but I don't know anything about these guys.
Right, exactly.
I guess they're a comic book team, and dude, yeah. So James Gunn for sure, all the way. Yeah. I also really, really enjoy this, which you'll hear as I
well, I mean, he gets
wax
it,
poetically.
I think. A lot of times, sometimes when you hear directors say they're fans, I don't like someone like Zack Snyder. I don't think he was really a fan. But when it comes to James Gunn, I can tell that he is a fan of comics, of comic book movies, of these franchises, and I think he gets it. All right, so the cast: Margot Robbie, Idris Elba, John Cena, Joel Kinnaman, who returns from the first Suicide Squad, Sylvester Stallone, Viola Davis also returning along with Jai Courtney, whatever you prefer. Maybe ask him, I don't know. Peter Capaldi also plays a role, somewhat of a smaller role in this, but he has a role he's from Doctor Who. There are plenty of other actors that aren't mentioned in that cast list because they have a bunch of characters that they kind of just dispatch early on. Part of the main cast, though, David Desmolchin and Daniela Melchior. I'm not sure how to say that, so I apologize if I said that horribly. But you also have Nathan Fillion as TDK, Michael Rooker as Savant, Pete Davidson as Blackguard, who's credited as Richard Dick Hertz. Yes. And if you know that, like, once you see the character, you kind of understand he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Sean Gunn plays Weasel. Sean Gunn also does all the work for Rocket. And he also plays Calendar Man in the one quick cameo in this movie as well. He makes fun of who was it? Bloodsport that he made fun of? I think so. He made fun of somebody as they were walking away. And then let's see. Flula Borg, he's a German comedian. He was also in one of the Pitch Perfect movies. He plays Javelin, who actually, even though he's not in it very long, he kind of has a long-lasting effect on the movie, I would say, which was a neat little part, I believe.
I just wish that Michael Rooker would have had a bigger role if we could have gotten
I do too.
Because I absolutely loved him in everything.
Michael Rooker is, and if you've seen James Gunn's filmography, he's in all of his movies, basically. And with knowing what happened to Yondu, it's going to be kind of sad for Guardians 3. So, because Rooker won't be able to be in it unless he just plays like a character that looks like himself.
We can always have a flashback.
This is true.
If they want to build on that from Guardians 2, that you want to talk about just a gut
an emotional, So this movie starts. The plot is essentially we get to look at the new Suicide Squad B team or A team. Whatever they're called.
You want to just talk about me, Scott? Like, what the hell? Who are all these guys?
Right.
Where is everybody?
We basically just drop in on this new crew of Suicide Squad members. The only ones that we recognize, Captain Boomerang and Harley Quinn, plus Rick Flag, who's the team leader. So he returns as well.
I have to stop you right there. Every time they said Rick Flag, do you think Ric Flair? I did. I was busting ready to woo every time.
It was nice when they would call him Flag because you wouldn't think about it as much. So that's the new team. They're on a beach and things start to go awry. And so they then cut to a second team that has been deployed on that same other side of the beach, which is led by Idris Elba's Bloodsport, John Cena's Peacemaker, Ratcatcher 2, Polka Dot Man, and King Shark, voiced by the lovable Sylvester Stallone, I guess. Lovable? I don't know. But everybody, it's a perfect voice for this character, I think.
What is his actual name? Nanoon? Nanuni?
Something like that. Nanoe or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. He actually doesn't, I don't think he appears in this main cast list because Stallone, oh no, here he is. Nanui, I don't know. King Shark, that's what I call it.
Anyway, it's just funny because Viola Davis is like, they're just a diversion. And I was just totally setting up the diversion.
It's a diversion within a diversion. Yes, exactly. So you kind of have this weird opening where you meet all these new characters. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a mini spoiler. Don't get attached to most of them. But there are some, I do think a character that we got, like we talked about from Suicide Squad, who I like, does get a cool ending when they, I don't know, cut to his arm and he's holding, I won't say what he's holding, but he's holding something. It was a really cool, kind of death sequence, I would say. But I don't want to spoil that for anybody that hasn't seen it yet. So we're kind of reintroduced to Harley right away.
Take a Game of Thrones approach to it is the best way I can.
Yeah. Exactly. And then we get all through that scene. That's basically the opening, and Suicide Squad comes on screen. And then we go to earlier. Yeah. And that's where we get to meet.
And that's the magic of James Gunn.
Yes.
Just incorporating a message to help everybody understand what exactly is going on. Built into the scene. It's just brilliant. Yes, it
really does. The editing, the filmography, cinematography, everything in this film kind of works really well together in unison. So then we get to go and we meet all the new main characters, which are Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba. We get his backstory. We get a little bit on Peacemaker, where a little back and forth between him and Bloodsport, because they're basically like, Bloodsport's comment is like, well, he does what I do. Why do we need him? And I do it better. How can you do better than directly in the middle? More in the middle. There's a good quipping back and forth between Cena and Idris Elba.
I have to say that John Cena, while still not a great actor, has gotten a lot better.
That was gonna be my comment too. John Cena has gotten a lot better. He has grown as an actor. I hope to see him do more stuff like he's got a movie coming out at the end of this month that we're gonna review too. That is another thing that's totally outside his usual performances. So to see him do something like this and to do it well and to pull off, there's a kind of a twisty thing that happens a little bit towards the end that he pulls off, I think, very well.
Yeah.
It was really nice to see him kind of also have as much fun with this role as the other actors had with their roles too, I think.
When you think about the trajectory of Dwayne The Rock Johnson's career, and just, he's been an actor in for 20 some years now.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like John Cena's on a similar path, but at a more accelerated rate. He's getting better, faster, which is great to see because
it is.
I love them both as wrestlers, and I love them both now as actors, but The Rock had some cringy early movies.
Yes, he did. He did. I do want to say that my son Donovan did have a great joke too while we were watching this movie. John Cena, Idris Elba, and Joel Kinnaman, aka Rick Flag, get arrested at one point, and Donovan and I always have this John Cena joke because you can't see him. John Cena, that's his wrestling thing. So Donovan's like, all I see is one white guy and one black guy. I go, Donovan, there's two white guys and one black guy. He goes, I can't see the other guy, Dan. I'm like, and I fell right into it. I was like, God damn it. Well, he got me. And it was perfect. So my son told a great John Cena joke, and of course he wouldn't let it die, but it did work in that one moment, and it was fantastic. So I wanted to share that.
Awesome.
So anyway, we get to see how they all kind of meet each other. And then we learn that they are like the Task Force X, and they are the main task force that they put on this mission. Because you find out that Polka Dot Man is the most powerful of the group, and then King Shark is the strongest of the group. So why would you put them on they should have been probably on the main task force, which they are. So you find out that kind of the other task force, which is unfortunately decimated early on, was really made for that purpose, like not to succeed necessarily. But obviously Harley was on that team, so you do have that connection there. She still lives, obviously, so she gets kidnapped, and they think they have to go. And probably one of the funniest reveals when they think they have to go capture Rick Flag, capture the flag. Weird. All right. When they rescue him, I should say. When they have to go rescue him.
Woo! Completely off the rails, folks.
And they realize that he was actually saved by the rebels. Leads to some of the funniest moments of, well, what happened to my entire, all my men out there? I don't see anybody. Somebody here. They're all gone.
Damnedest thing.
And then Polka Dot Man. I just imagined that they were all my mother, and I killed them all.
He's got an amazing
David Deschmolchen as Polka Dot Man is incredible.
Yes.
And to me is, along with Ratcatcher 2, they're like the heart of the movie.
Absolutely.
And it's so great to have characters that are so weird. Because both of those characters are very, very strange.
Yep.
But they fit so perfectly into this movie. And I was just so, I love David Deschmolchen. We get him in the Ant-Man movies, and he's coming up in Dune, and he's got some other small roles. He's in The Dark Knight as a character who doesn't speak, who when they think is like the one that's assassinating the mayor. But he just adds such a, I don't know, it's just a great character for this film, and the fact that he basically wants to die, and you find out why he wants to die later on, why, what happens to him, which is pretty horrible. Every time that he gets to use his powers, so it was such a great character. It's probably my favorite new character of the film, I would say.
Yeah. That's the Weasel has got to be up there.
Okay, Weasel's up there too. So Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, plays Weasel. Please someone tell me that they checked to see if the Weasel could swim. He's basically just a giant, tall weasel. And he just
can't swim.
He can't swim, and he doesn't really do much else. But there is a little kind of twist at the secret ending at the end with him. And there is an end credit scene all the way at the end that sets up a show that'll be coming out in the next year. But this movie, it has everything. It has the comedy, it has the violence, it has the action, it has characters that you grow to love. I think it does help that Harley Quinn is here because it's a character I think people have already attached themselves to, and it makes it easier to get the other characters. Idris Elba is great. He's just really wonderful at playing these kind of charismatic roles, and similar to what The Rock does. That makes it a much better actor. Idris Elba is, but just able to take someone who's not necessarily good, because obviously they're the Suicide Squad, so they're all bad, and make you care for them. Yeah. And I thought they did such a great job. King Shark Stallone as King Shark is great. I know in the comics people were mad because I guess in the comics he's very ferocious, and in this one he's kind of an idiot.
But also they got the ferociousness in there. They did, sure.
Yes.
But they just sprinkle in the perfect amount of just comedies and just funny stuff. It's just the perfect time. It's comedic gold. It's mixed into an action movie.
Yes, it's the same way that Gunn works in with Drax, the comedy stuff with Drax.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of the Rocket and Groot stuff too. So he kind of works with those kind of characters perfectly, and it's great that he's able to work with CGI characters so well, and like just make it feel like a real person. Like you feel like King Shark is part of the team and he's there with them. When it's just, it worked so perfectly in this film that everything was just awesome. No other way to put it. I love this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I actually almost just started watching it again last night. Like that's how much I really liked this movie. It's just so entertaining. I mean, I'm a huge James Gunn fan, and that's part of it for sure. But I think he just makes movies that are entertaining, and he does go a little dark, which is great because he does it with like big budget movies now. I'm going to show you some of his movies a little later here, but he really like early on in his career he went dark with not having such a big audience, and now he's got a huge audience to go dark with, and I'm really interested to see what he does with the Peacemaker series, because what they do with John Cena in this movie, it's really interesting. His character has a really interesting turn that it's...
Why are you in your underwear?
my wife was like, what is going on? Why is John Cena naked?
Tidy whities. That's racist.
That is racist. No, it's not.
Sorry, probably just completely derailed your train of thought there, but...
Well, it's just what they do with his character, because I'm going to say it, they make you not like him to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But you have a 5 to 6 episode series coming out where I'm assuming they're going to want you to like this character. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see where they take that arc of John Cena's Peacemaker, who is not necessarily a perfect character, but I do like. So there are some moments in here, and this is, I guess, some spoilery area. So if you haven't watched it yet, maybe don't watch this part. But like when the thing happens, like you see it in his eyes that he's not all bad. You know what I mean? Like there's this something there that he's kind of like, he still does what he does, but he's putting it through his mind, saying, well, this is just the way it has to be. No matter how I feel about it, what I do now is how it has to be. And it's a lot to take from a scene, I think, that you like. That's what's great about James Gunn. Like, he gives you all that with really John Cena not saying a lot of words. So that's why you know he's getting to be a better actor, too, is like he's able to kind of convey a lot of these emotions without speaking.
But again, like the thing that gets lost in that moment, and it's not a thing that's like a knock against the thing. These are still villains.
Yes.
These are still bad guys. You got to keep that in mind.
Yes, they are. Exactly. Which is why you also kind of cut him a little bit of slack, too, because he's already mainly a villain already. And it's the same with Idris Elba's character and Ratcatcher, too. And they are villains, but they do somewhat have hearts. We do have to talk about Harley Quinn, which we talked about her so much in the other movies, but she again is like the driving force behind this franchise. And some of the stuff that she gets to do in this movie is a lot of fun. The javelin gives her the javelin and tells her that she's going to do something really important with it, but not what she's going to do with it. So the whole movie, she's trying to figure out what she has to do with the javelin until she finally figures it out. And what is a really just crazy ass scene as well. Like, it's just really nuts. And they were fighting a giant starfish, by the way, if you haven't seen the trailer. Her name's Starro.
And John Cena again. A starfish is also could be called a body part, a butthole.
Yeah.
Is that important? No, it's not.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that. There is again, what this movie does too, differently than the other Suicide Squad movie, different than the other DC movies. It puts the characters at risk in a way that you're not sure who's going to survive.
Yeah.
because they kind of let you know early on when this movie was being made. Gunn said like anybody could go. He's like they've given me permission to do whatever I want. Now, granted, I'm sure he really would have to talk hard to them if his idea was to kill off Harley Quinn, which I'm sure he would have had to really prove it to him. I will spoil one thing. That does not happen. She's okay. But I won't tell you about any of the other characters. But again, like back to her, like she just, the scene with, oh my God, the scene with the dictator or the president of the country.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was so good. And then there are a couple other just like she's not in the whole movie, but she has these scenes, and then her first action sequence too that she has on her own, just badass. And that's where you get it's all very colorful, very flowery. It reminded me of Birds of Prey. It's all kind of in her head the way it's all happening, which is a very interesting way to shoot. And the one thing is, if you hadn't seen Birds of Prey, so I don't know, was that confusing to you that she had all these things like going on?
It was a little bit. It's like, okay, but I just chalked it up to her having some kind of mental instability there.
Exactly, from being dropped in the acid by the Joker.
Dick.
Yeah, what a jerk. So as you can tell, we love this movie. I mean, go watch it now. If you feel comfortable going to see it in theaters, take precautions, obviously. It is such a great, fun, entertaining film. And I wish I would have gotten to see it in theaters. Right. I'm not going to. But it really is something to be enjoyed, I think. So check it out on HBO Max or in theaters. That brings us to our next movie.
And I think this is a very fair assessment here. As much as we liked the new Suicide Squad, we did not care for
the Delta Force.
1986 Chuck Norris. And now you think, all right, great, Walker, Texas Ranger. I love it. But when you get Chuck Norris as a supporting character at best.
Yes.
And
apparent badass, but still a supporting character throughout the entire movie. So I'm going to start out with saying, I hated this movie with a passion.
It was so hard to get through, and it's like 2.5 hours long.
Why is it so long? It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think. When I saw that, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm like that's because I picked this movie because I was like Suicide Squad, Delta Force, team. This will be kind of cool. I've never really seen Delta Force. I've heard of it. I know they have many sequels.
Yeah, they talked about it like it's gold.
Like it's this. Yeah.
What the? Oh wow!
Okay, a hidden treasure from the '80s. My ass.
No, yeah. Why is everybody getting naked on the airplane?
It was all because
this is a story about a plane that gets hijacked by some Middle Eastern men.
Well, one Middle Eastern man and one white guy playing a Middle Eastern man in Robert Forster.
Yes.
I will not speak ill of the dead, as I'm a huge fan of Robert Forster, but I don't know what the producers of this movie were thinking.
Yeah.
That was a really horrible choice to make him an Arabic man. Also, there's hardly any subtitles to understand what they're saying the majority of the time. There was an entire conversation between Robert Forster and another terrorist, who we don't know is a terrorist till later, on the ground, and it was literally like back and forth for like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, and there was no subtitles. No idea what they were saying.
Then you got the underlying issue about the people who are Jewish on the airplane are rounded up, and there's that whole aspect of it. And it just kind of made me go.
It speaks to like
the German flight attendant,
who has to then pick out the Jewish people, which is a very dramatic scene. That
was a cringy moment for me, and then just airplane hijackings, obviously, with the 9/11 and the 20th anniversary coming up. It's triggering. I mean, I wasn't really affected by it, but obviously
it could be.
It's potentially a trigger warning.
So. Yes. It stars Chuck Norris, Lee Marvin. It's directed by Menahem Golan, who is one of the. So it was produced. And this is why it was so terrible. It's produced by Canon Films. Canon Films. There's a great documentary on Canon Films and how shitty they were. I just watched another one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which I really liked. That was a good movie. But they've made mostly terrible, awful films. And they're responsible for, like, Chuck Norris being a star, essentially. And the Death Wish guy.
Charles Bronson.
Yeah, Charles Bronson. So, knowing that it was a Canon film going into it, I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be interesting. And like Wayne said, it's like Chuck Norris is the star of his own movie, but he's really not. It's like almost Robert Forster's movie and everybody on the plane, because they're in the majority of the film. there's so many moments where Lee Marvin, who's the other main character and main actor in the film, and Chuck Norris are like on the ground and they're like ready to do battle, and then something happens and then they don't do battle and then they have to wait. So like all the action also in this almost 2.5 hour movie is towards the end of the movie.
Well, here's my issue. That this is just a head scratcher for me. Would you say that there's at least 50 able-bodied men on that plane?
Yes.
And there are 2 terrorists with one has a handgun, one has like a little submachine gun.
And they had hand grenades too.
I mean, come on. Shelley Winter's characters. There's only 2 of them. There's only 2
yes.
of them. Somebody do something. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Yo! I mean, I get fear for your life and everything, but at some point, it's just... Anyway, again, trigger warning. Sorry, guys. Apologies. I should have said that before I got started.
Robert Vaughn was also in this. Lainie Kazan, George Kennedy is an Irish priest.
Yeah, George Kennedy as a priest. Let that one kind of marinate. See, tell me how you feel about it.
Kim Delaney, I'm not quite sure. She had to play like the mother, I'm assuming, of the daughter on the plane, the little girl. Joey Bishop was in this too. I don't really know who he was in it either.
I think he was the father of the little girl.
Maybe. Okay, let's see.
Well, who just child actor. And again, why was she running around with no clothes on? Like, there's a scene that's just really awkward.
You want to hear some side actors who were uncredited extras in this movie?
I would love to.
Liam Neeson was a Delta Force member, uncredited extra.
Are you really going to make me rewatch this thing to find him? Because you know I'm going to have to now.
Michael T. Williamson, a.k.a. Bubba Gump, Delta Force uncredited extra in this movie. I swear I did not look at any of this until Steve James. I did recognize him as a member of the Delta Force. Robert Vaughn is easily recognizable. Bose Stevenson, I think he's one of those guys that's like a military guy. I don't know. Whatever. He's another actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Shelley Winters was easily recognizable. Joey Bishop. He was the old man. Lainie Kazan from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Okay. That was her husband.
Gotcha.
I thought he'd be kind of old by this point. Oh, Kim Delaney was the young nun. That's who she was. I was trying to figure out who she was the entire time. Susan Strasberg, who was one of the great acting teachers, was also in this. She might have been the older flight attendant. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Terrible movie. Let's see if there's anything else worth talking about.
How about that awesome motorcycle that he rides that reloads itself
at the end? Yes.
It fires the missiles.
He's got a motorcycle. Chuck Norris has a motorcycle that fires missiles for some reason. Oh, my other favorite thing, too, is when because Chuck Norris, in the beginning, a mission goes awry. He saves one of the guys, and there's a big explosion. He retires, essentially. And then when how they get him back is he's sitting in his house or trailer or wherever he's sitting, eating his dinner with the radio on, apparently, or the news, and he hears about the terrorist attack. And the first scene is like him. He's like, he just gets kind of frustrated, but then he continues to eat, and then he hears it again, and he's like, and he throws his fork down, and he gets on his motorcycle and drives away. And I'm like, wait, what? And then they're like, we have to wait. We know he'll be here. Yeah. And so they almost wait till the last second until he shows up. Chuck Norris is not a good actor. Lee Marvin, at this point of his career, was not also a good actor.
Yeah.
Whether he was or not, I honestly don't know. I know who Lee Marvin is. I haven't seen a ton of his movies.
I know Lee Marvin from Paint Your Wagon, the Clint Eastwood.
I only know him from The Simpsons. I've never actually seen the movie.
Lee Marvin! Homer, yes.
I only know that Lee Marvin's in that movie and that it's a real movie because of The Simpsons.
It's a musical, so I would guess that you would not care for it at all. So,
it's just, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was just expecting a 1980s action flick, but it's like a terrorist airplane thriller with a little tiny bit of action at the end.
Yeah, you go in, you hear terrorist action movie from the 80s. You're hoping for Die Hard.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Not good. So don't watch it, ever.
I don't have anything else to say about this.
I really don't.
Disappointment.
It's a turkey, for sure. It's not good. I remember people talking about it fondly when I worked at a Blockbuster back in the day. Like, oh man, Delta Force, they don't make movies like that anymore. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God they don't.
I made that joke with you earlier before we started. I'm like, wow, people really have a lot less taste back then.
They seriously.
Or lower expectations. And
yes, I think it was just like, I like Chuck Norris, so I like to see him in movies.
These are my sons, Walker and Texas Ranger.
This movie, Wayne, played in 1,700 theaters. And it earned almost $6 million in its opening weekend with a total gross of $17.7 million.
I can see why at this point, but I'm sure back then that was pretty good. That was a pretty good box office.
Yes, it opened up it lost the box office to The Color Purple and Down and Out in Beverly Hills. However, it beat Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, and Youngblood, which is, I believe, the hockey movie.
Yes, Youngblood is a gem, honestly.
Yes.
If you're a hockey fan. If you're not, well, you probably...
Yeah, Rob Lowe and Patrick Swayze, yeah. So it beat that and the second Nightmare movie, which at that point when Nightmare 2 came out, it wasn't as loved as it is today, and it was considered a disaster. So it makes sense. All right, excuse me there.
I believe our good friend Scott Jordan would have something to say about that being called a disaster.
Yes, he would. All right, so let's go to what we've watched this week. I got a couple things I wanted to talk about. I'm going to go to my photos that I'm posting anything this week. Let's see. I watched Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. So this is the sequel to the Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson film, Hitman's Bodyguard. Salma Hayek was in that one. She's also in this one. She plays Samuel L. Jackson's wife. So it's more about her, but all three of them are the main characters. It's fun. It's, the first one to me was a surprise when it came out. I didn't think it was going to be that good. I really enjoyed it. This one's not as great as the first one, but it's okay. It makes you laugh. It's got some great moments. It's fun watching Salma Hayek just like cuss up a storm, as well as Samuel L. Jackson, which he does all the time anyway. But yeah, so once it comes out, rent cheap or it's on HBO, watch it. Especially if you like the first one. 5 Feet Apart, Wayne. I watched this one on Netflix. It is about a movie about two kids with cystic fibrosis, and they basically are in a moment in their lives where they're in the hospital and they can't go anywhere, so they kind of become like boyfriend girlfriend, and I thought it was really good. It stars one of the Sprouse brothers from Big Daddy.
Gotcha.
And I forget the girl's name, but it was a solid flick. Haley Lou Richardson. She's been in some horror films and whatnot. But it's a good film. I really recommend watching it. It's on Netflix. Jungle Land, I watched. My wife thought it was boring. Charlie Hunnam, Jack O'Connell. It's two brothers that are like independent boxers that are trying to make a way for themselves. They're like homeless and stuff. Yeah. Hunnam was good in it. So was Jack O'Connell. Solid flick, I think. The Retreat is a horror film about two girls who are lovers, and they go on a getaway, meeting up with their friends who never end up showing up. Well, they do later. Someone's trying to kill them. And
they show up in pieces.
Yes, basically. And it's kind of one of those it's a slasher movie kind of in a way, or like a Killer in the Woods type of movie. It stars Aaron Ashmore. Sean Ashmore's twin brother, the guy Sean Ashmore played Iceman. Aaron Ashmore plays one of the villains in it, as well as Kiefer Sutherland's brother plays a villain in it as well.
One of them was on Smallville as Jimmy Olsen.
That was Aaron Ashmore.
Okay.
That was, yeah.
One of them, they both look alike to me.
Yeah, they're identical. So, last night we watched The Swarm on Netflix. That wasn't very good. What did we watch else on Netflix? This is another one. Actually, it has Sean Ashmore in it on Netflix. It's a new movie that just came out. Not very good. Don't watch it. I forget what it's called, so don't. That won't matter.
So the movie that you can't remember, don't watch it.
Don't watch it. I've been watching, Wayne. I talked about it. I think last year, because during the pandemic is when I started watching it. All American, which is Taye Diggs' show on CW.
Is that about football?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Spencer James. It's a true story. It's really good. The first 3 seasons are up on Netflix. The third season just came out, so I'm in the middle of that right now because I had watched the first 2 last year. It's really an entertaining show. It's got some teen drama in it and stuff because it's about teenagers, but like all CW shows are. But it was really entertaining, and I really like that show. So if you haven't checked it out, check that one out. Ted Lasso season 2 has started. I haven't watched the 3rd episode yet, but the first 2 were fantastic. Catch up on that one if you haven't seen it. Wayne, have you got anything you want to talk about this week?
We watched the 6th Harry Potter movie recently this week.
Okay.
And while, the later Harry Potter movies really start to stray away from the books. This one in particular, it's got some comedy sprinkled in, much in the same style that James Gunn kind of sprinkles stuff in. You're
Yes.
like, I see what they did there. And so, that's a good one. As a whole, the movies, especially toward the end for me, were not great. Especially part 2 of the Deathly Hallows, I am absolutely furious about. But
really, see, I hate part 1. Part 2, I like, but I didn't read the book, so
see, that's the problem because they deviate from the books and it completely changes the story. So
okay.
Again, if we get to Harry Potter at some point,
we will. Yeah, we'll do a deep dive on Harry Potter.
I will go ham on this topic because I am very passionate about it. Still working my way through Masters of the Universe. Great show on Netflix. Kevin Smith did an absolutely fantastic job. And of course, I'm having my usual brain cramp about what else I've watched, but yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there for now. So.
Okay. Aftermath was the movie I didn't like, so don't watch Aftermath on Netflix. It's a Netflix original with Ashley Greene and Shawn Ashmore. All right, so on to Mike's horror movie pick of the week. I've actually got 3 here, and one of them is technically not a horror movie, but I wanted to talk about James Gunn and his other movies that he directed 2 of these. He wrote 1 of these. So people know Toxic Avenger. I think maybe they don't, maybe they do. They may know Trauma. So in 1997, I think, is when this came out. James Gunn had written a screenplay called Romeo and Juliet.
Interesting.
Yes. It's a very gross out, kind of disgusting movie, but it's a lot of fun. It's hilarious. There's a giant penis monster, I think, at some point. But it kind of shows like the dark side of James Gunn and how weird and strange he can be. He actually has a small role in it too, where he gets killed instantly. His brother is actually, I can show you, Wayne, is one of the main characters in the movie.
Naturally.
He plays, it's Romeo and Juliet. Obviously, he's there on the front too. That's Sean Gunn, for everybody that knows who Sean Gunn is. He plays one of the cousins of the Capulets or whatever the hell they're called. The Romeo and Juliet family names or whatever. Montague and Capulet. There is a lot of sex and stuff in this movie, so not a kid's movie, but it is definitely something if you're into the weird and bizarre and you just want to know where James Gunn kind of comes from. This is something that one of the first things that he ever did. So check that out. I think you could find it on Amazon Prime to watch. Next is his directorial debut. Before this, he wrote The Specials, Dawn of the Dead, the remake, nice. Scooby-Doo 1 and 2. But then in 2006, he got to do his directorial debut, and that is Slither, starring Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks, Michael Rooker, of course. Mm-hmm. Fantastic little slug monster movie about alien slugs from outer space that really kind of like a 1950s monster film. If you like those style of films, it really is a lot of fun. I remember when it came out, people just kind of put it off at this silly monster film, but it's very smart, and he's just so talented with his style, and it's hilarious, but it's bloody, it's gory, it's violent, and that's what he does well. So check that one out. And then the last one is not really a horror film necessarily, but it's bloody as hell, and it fits more into what he does now. It's called Super, with Rainn Wilson, Elliot Page, what's her name? Liv Tyler, Kevin Bacon as the main villain, Michael Rooker as his right-hand guy. Elliot Page just is an early, kind of after Juno, he did this, and it's a weird, kind of a weird track, because Super was more of an indie kind of art house style movie, but in a different way.
He took the opposite path you'd think he would have.
Yes.
The opposite trajectory.
Yes. After being nominated for an Oscar for Juno, you were like, oh. But it's a very fun role for him, and it really just stands out as just a very entertaining freaking movie. I mean, basically it's a movie about a guy who wants to be a superhero. Well, he really doesn't want to be a superhero, but he's mad at the world, and his wife left him, and she's addicted to drugs, and he turns to comic books. Mm-hmm. And so then he becomes this superhero who just, his opening thing is he's standing in line in a movie, and someone pisses him off, so he goes and grabs a wrench from his car and bashes him over the head with it. And it's a huge wrench, like a plumber's wrench type thing. So very violent, very bloody, very funny. check it out if you haven't seen it. It's an IFC film. I think IFC Midnight, which is like how they do like their horror films. So yeah, those movies, 3 James Gunn films I recommend for the week. Can give you a background. You may be like, wow, Mike's really, really weird, and I'm going to stop listening to him. But if you don't, and you like those type of movies, I think it'll send you down a path of some weird, bizarre films. All right, so let's move on to the news and notes of the week. Let's see. News this week. Disney's The Mighty Ducks Game Changers has been renewed for a 2nd season. Colin Jost and his brother Casey are writing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action reboot. There's nothing to do with the Seth Rogen animated movie that's coming out in the next year or two. So it's its own thing. There's no word on whether it will actually be a movie or not. A lot of times when these jobs are given, it doesn't mean it's a green light. It just means they're going to take a shot at it and see if they can write something. Zolo Maraduena, who plays Miguel in Cobra Kai, is in talks to be the lead for DC Warner Brothers HBO Max movie Blue Beetle. Travis Scott, his Cactus Jack film production company, signs a deal with A24 Films. Brendan Fraser joins Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Jesse Plemons in Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, which will debut on Apple Plus streaming service in the near future. So Fraser, and another one, Fraser also joins Brothers from the director of Palm Springs with Peter Dinklage, Josh Brolin, and Glenn Close. He's busy. We talked about Fraser a couple weeks ago on this podcast. He's continuing to get more roles. Good for him. Nicholas Hoult will star as Renfield in Renfield, the film about Dracula's assistant. Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon to star in a new rom-com for Netflix. Yellowstone's 1883 prequel to star Sam Elliott, Tim McGraw, and Faith Hill. South Park renewed through 2027, Wayne.
That's some big news right there.
And Paramount Plus orders 14 South Park movies to go to Paramount Plus. 14 of them. I was like, whoa!
Yeah. Initially you hear that, it's like, that's a bit of an overkill.
Yes.
But
hopefully they won't be directly involved, because that means they'll be stretched real thin. So I'm hoping they're just going to kind of be overseeing some of the movies. They'll probably direct a few of them.
Stretched through their 30th season in 2027, right?
Yep.
To think that South Park will be around for 30 years.
It's insane, man. Didn't think it was going to last so long, to be honest. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist is getting a wrap-up movie at Roku, so anyone that's a big fan of that got canceled after its 2nd season. It will be able to finish the story. Wayne, obviously, I'm sure you're a huge fan. The Bad Batch has been renewed for a 2nd season over at Disney+. Chronicle 2 is a superhero movie, like a found-footage superhero movie from 9 years ago. It's finally getting a sequel. It's officially in the works. Don't know who's going to be in it. I know Max Landis will not be working on it. He wrote the original screenplay, but he's kind of done in Hollywood right now. So interesting to see where that's going to go and who's going to be involved. Argyle from Matthew Vaughn and starring Henry Cavill, Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, Samuel L. Jackson, Bryan Cranston, Catherine Keener, and John Cena heading to Apple Plus in a $200 million deal. Pretty big cast for that movie.
Apple Plus, man, they're making some moves.
They are, yeah, they really are. Dan Levy, the son of Eugene Levy, and the creator of Schitt's Creek, is going to co-write and star in a Hulu animated series called Standing By. This is news that I really like. Luis Guzman has been cast to play Gomez Adams in the Tim Burton Wednesday series at Netflix.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Very happy for him. I'm a huge Luis Guzman fan. I wasn't even thinking of him when they were talking. When they announced it, I'm like, well, there you go. Perfect. Every once in a while, that'll happen. Someone you're not thinking of get cast in something that you were like, oh, I wonder who would do that. And then you're just like, oh, it fits. It's just kismet. James Gunn, who we were talking about earlier, is working on a Ravager series for Disney Plus. I'm assuming just to keep giving his brother work. Be my guess.
At this point, yeah, why not?
Just kidding. I love Sean Gunn as well, so I'm glad that anytime he gets to be in something will be awesome. Reginald the Vampire, based on Fat Vampire book series. That's the name of the book series. Don't get mad at me. I'm not fat shaming vampires. Coming to Sci-Fi for 10 episodes with Jacob Batalon, who plays Peter Parker's right-hand Ned in the Spider-Man movies, the newest ones, is going to be the main character, Reginald. Releases, stuff coming out soon. Lord of the Rings TV series is going to premiere on September 2nd, 2022.
Over $1 million an episode.
Yo! Yeah, it's insane. I'm interested to see how that's going to turn out. I hope it's not terrible, because that would be a lot of money to spend on something that's awful.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith documentary coming out November 23rd. Worth with Michael Keaton hits Netflix September 3rd. He's All That, the kind of remake / sequel to She's All That, coming to Netflix August 27th. Matthew Lillard and Rachel Lee Cook are both in it. I don't know that they're the same characters or not, but they're in the movie. They were in the original.
I'm good with that. It's about time we shift that around and
I'm interested,
give these guys a taste of their own medicine.
Yes, I'm interested to see how it turns out. It's Robbie from Cobra Kai is the guy that gets changed, and he's All That.
Yes.
And Addison Rae, I think is her name. She's a TikTok star. She'll be like her first acting role.
Oh gosh, really?
Yeah. So we'll
no
see.
offense. I just, a lot of people on TikTok, not the best actors.
Yes,
so, hey,
exactly.
Let's hope for the best.
Bruised, directed by and starring Halle Berry, hits Netflix November 24th. Dope Sick, a new series starring Michael Keaton, Will Poulter, Peter Sarsgaard, Michael Stolberg, Caitlin Dever, and Rosario Dawson, hits Hulu October 13th. The Great returns to Hulu for season 2 on November 19th. Deaths this week: Jay Pickett, General Hospital in Port Charles, dead at 60. He died on the set of his movie Treasure Valley. Very sad. He also appeared on Dexter as well.
Mm-hmm.
Saginaw Grant from Breaking Bad and Hearts of the West, dead at 85. Beautiful Bobby Eaton, a wrestler, dead at 62. Trevor Moore is the founder of the Whitest Kids You Know comedy troupe, and there was they had a sketch comedy show, and they also directed the movie and starred in the movie Miss March. He passed away just yesterday at 41 from an accident. I didn't say what the accident was. Marky Post, actress from Night Court, and another Night Court actor, has passed away, dead at 70. So rest in peace to all those involved in that list there. Yeah, that's our show for this week. This is our third recorded video. We will start to release these. We haven't put them out yet. So look forward to seeing us in person. Hopefully, you'll enjoy it. So we'll see. All right. Thank you for watching and listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.